The BBC's biggest villain.
Macron's penis plot.
And Bezos the Bridezilla.
All this and more on this week's episode of News Sensation.
Hello and welcome back to New Sensation, the podcast where we take you through the weirdest and wildest stories of the week that was. I'm Matty Curry.
And I'm Chris Patel.
Now, Chris, with this being the first time we've tried to do this, how's your week been so far? Your weekend? What have you been up to?
It's been a decent week. I've mostly been trying not to melt into a puddle because it's the muggiest. I mean, global warming's doing its bits.
It's doing bits. Well, climate change, darling, please, come on. Because if it's global warming, why is there all this snow?
You can't say anything anymore.
Can't say anything in these
Can't
days.
even say your English anymore.
I mean, you can. You can. Yeah. But I mean, I think people kind of look at you askance and go, I'm so sorry, darling. That's a shame. Which is probably why I spent my weekend with a bunch of Yankee cosplayers.
Oh, that sounds like every other weekend.
Sounds like every other weekend. Sounds like a weekend with me. But no, because I was down at British Summertime for the Zach Bryan gig.
Oh, nice.
I was there for the second night, Sunday night, because the first night sold out so quickly. We managed to snag tickets for the second, and still it was absolutely packed. Hyde Park was bouncing, and it was hot.
What's a British like Zach Bryan crowd look like? Because you can imagine the Americans, like the truckers.
You would be surprised in the fact that it looks exactly like an American Zach Bryan gig.
Oh.
Because everyone decides that this is the time of year where it's socially acceptable to dress like a cowboy. For me, it's every other day of the year.
I'll tell you which outfits I'm excited to see. The South Manchester Soul Train convention that we're going to see on Saturday when, yes, we're going to see Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Very excited about
I
this.
can't wait to see what Radio 6 dads are wearing like a Pan-African get-up.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I really hope someone goes the full 9 yards. But you know what? I think we're going to be boogieing away ourselves.
I think so.
My two types of fit are cowboy and disco. And I think you'd only ever see those two worlds collide at something like, say, Glastonbury, would you argue?
Perhaps. I mean, we saw much more than crazy eclectic outfits and an Instagram post which say, let's all take a moment to take Glastonbury in this week. Because two words have been on the entire British media's mind, and it's Bob Vylan. So more on that in a second. But I came across this week a pretty kind of vapid article about Glastonbury's best bits.
Okay.
So it mentioned celebrity sightings, as if people haven't gone there to see celebrities.
Well, but also celebrity sightings, like what? Oh, they're at a music concert.
Yeah.
Is that the story?
Well, yeah. Who cares?
Who cares? We'll get on to celebrity sightings later because actually it can be quite fun to spot celebrities when they shouldn't be there.
We hope you care about celebrity sightings.
Yeah, actually, backtrack. Yeah.
There was a slightly, I'm gonna say it. It was a slightly sus game organised where two kids have to take each other's socks off. It's a game of sock wrestling. Straight out of early Disney Channel, that.
More Nickelodeon, you'd argue.
Well, yeah. People are arguing it in court. I'd have added a couple of things to the best bits. So one of my favourite things was an interview with Jacob Rees-Mogg, who, when he was asked if he'd been to Glastonbury, he said, I've been to the Abbey.
Oh,
So,
he's just the worst.
he is literally the worst. He got asked what a kind of right of centre festival would look like. And he said, mock battles and a little bit of jousting. Sounds like Zach Bryan.
It sounds like Warwick Castle, actually. And I have also been on days out in recent times to Warwick Castle. Good time.
You'd fit right in with kind of Boris's, like Dominic
Right,
Cummings.
you make a very careful point right now, Chris Patel.
No, that was quite a careless point. Yeah, Matty actually went on a pro-Brexit march.
No, this is not true. I'm on an anti-Brexit march outside the Tory conference in Manchester. This is unbelievable. No, hang on. Let me draw right. Your brother calling me far left was like incorrect. That struck a nerve because I was sort of like, well, actually, I'm a bit more moderate than that, and I think most people on the left would agree. In fact, I had people messaging in saying it was disgraceful that anyone would ever refer to me as far left because I'm nowhere near left enough for their appetite. But you suggesting that because I like to go to Warwick Castle, where I have friends who work there putting on stellar performances, and shout out to people who make that day so special for all the families involved.
Just like in Matty's head, there was a battle between right and left at Glastonbury as well. Or at least there should have been. Because Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, turned down an invitation to debate friend of the show, Zach Polanski.
Friend of the show, Zach Polanski.
Who's launching a bid to be leader of the Greens, over concerns that it would not be safe for him at Glasgow. Is it safe for anyone at Glasgow? I'm thinking, bottles of piss, people throwing dog shit in your tent.
I think it's simultaneously safe and unsafe. It depends how you conduct Glasgow, because people go with like families,
Yeah.
right? They go with little kids, and it's just like, oh, you're in the tent, it's all good time. If you hang out at certain stages, you might get like an elbow to the face at turnstile, which is a rite of passage. But like, I think it's pretty. It's like as festivals go, it's not Burning Man. You're not,
No.
dying of dehydration in the Mojave Desert. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Tice might have caught an elbow or two at Bob Vylan if he decided to go, because you probably already know about this. Punk rap duo Bob Vylan, one of their members, who both are called Bob Vylan, so I'm just gonna call him Bob Vylan.
It's such a coincidence when you meet two people and you're like, yeah, we should start a band, shouldn't we?
It's like when the actors for Fred and George were asked, oh, did you know each other before this? And they were like, no, we met at the audition. So Bobby Vylan chanted death to the IDF, which is the Israeli army, and British media, is it fair to say it's blown up, like massively caught ablaze at all this?
Yeah, and I think on all sides of the conversation, it's kind of gone, and they're all fanning the flames of each other's flames as well. It's just very hot, very fiery.
What's wild is that the outrage over the words is taking precedence over the outrage over the ongoing genocide.
Well, yeah. You're seeing like the rankings of sort of articles over like what's getting more clicks, and more people are interested in. And I mean, we're putting it on our podcast, so I hope you are interested in this story over like say the strike on like the Riverside Cafe the next day.
Yeah,
where it's like
what's quite funny or farcical, I should say, really, about the situation is that you could really chalk it up to a BBC blunder. So they meant to, they decided not to broadcast Kneecap, who are the controversial Irish rap group. And whatever your political opinions, I think that was justified because Kneecap make a very bad music.
This is the thing. It's like it's so funny because I saw posters recently sort of saying like defend Kneecap, and I was like, you know what, we can have the conversations about free speech, whatever, but also defend my ears from having listened to too much Kneecap. Yeah.
I'm way behind them, very, very far behind.
Very, very far behind them.
I'm also enjoying now how much I'm hearing journalists, like esteemed journalists from across all platforms, say Bob Vylan, as if it's not some band name that was definitely thought of while drunk or high or something. It's as if our lives had gone down a different path, and then everyone was saying Classic Bedtime, which was the name of the band that me and Matty were very briefly in.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine Classic Bedtime causing an outrage at this level?
Classic Bedtime chanted death to the rest is politics.
We're coming for you, Campbell. But no, I think what's interesting with the Bob Vylan name as well is, again, a bit like with Kneecap, the name is about as good as the music.
Yes.
Because I think it's really fascinating that they kind of went, right, we're not going to show Kneecap, and it's like, oh, controversial, but also I don't have to listen to Kneecap for an hour. It's like, what should we show instead? I've heard good things about Bob Vylan. From who? From who? First of all, did you look the band up at all?
I've heard that Bob Vylan never expresses his opinions. I've heard he toes the line.
Yeah, punk duo Bob Vylan, surely.
It's like when they got Rage Against the Machine on was it like a New Year's thing or something, or Christmas Day?
Yeah,
some BBC
like
broadcast,
event,
and they were like, they started playing a song, and they're just like, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
Yeah.
They're like, sorry, they promised they wouldn't do this.
Yeah. They said they wouldn't do that. It's like they've been playing "Killing in the Name" for 3 minutes up to the point of them saying those words. You could have cut off the broadcast.
It gets more farcical as well because the BBC article I was talking about before of the best bits, it was praising the so-called bleeping bandits who were on the kind of staff team who sit around a desk and are required to bleep and censor Glastonbury as it plays. And the BBC has since said the live broadcast should have been pulled. Well, either pull it or don't praise the bandits.
It was also bandits on iPlayer for a while before they then pulled it. So it's just sort of like, can you make up your mind? And also,
all the nation's mums had seen it.
Yeah, how much bleeping do they do for people like, I don't know, like Olivia Rodrigo, who likes a good curse word?
Does she like an F-bomb?
Oh yeah. Everyone does. Who doesn't? It's Glastonbury. This is the thing, is it's like the moment you start like putting beeps into songs, you kind of take away some of the fun.
Well, yeah, some people weren't seeing the funny side. Keir Starmer, for one, he doesn't really ever see the funny side.
Possibly the driest man in the UK.
He's a very dry man.
Yeah.
He called it appalling hate speech. Slightly different response from Wes Streeting, which I was quite pleased to see he showed a bit of backbone. Yeah. He said that the Israeli embassy, who complained about this, obviously, said they need to get their own house in order before saying things like that. And
Wes Streeting, who
Wes
has caught
Streeting.
he's caught some strays on this show before. It should be noted. As I stumble through that sentence, like Wes Streeting, not necessarily, I wouldn't call him friend of the show, but great line.
He was the man of the house that night. I bet he walked home with a little spring in his step.
You know, he probably felt like
sort of cold sweat.
He probably felt like Gavin Newsom after everything happened in California, where like he became like Trump's #1 enemy, and he's like, "Yeah, come over here and arrest me then." And it's like Gavin Newsom, I don't think anyone's like a massive like fan of Gavin Newsom. No one's like, "Oh, you know who I love?"
Despite the fact he's now got a
Gavin
podcast
Newsom.
and he's trying to drum up a fan base.
Yeah, well, who would do that?
Yeah, God. It gets worse for Bob Vylan. So they've been banned from the US.
That's
Sorry,
wild.
I should have said it gets better for Bob Vylan. And they've also been dropped by United Talent Agency, who still represent Chris Brown. So, we've had predictably mass hysteria from the likes of the Daily Telegraph.
Yes.
So there's one esteemed journalist called Stephen Pollard who said that Vylan's chance was far worse, quote unquote, than Lucy Connolly's tweet. If you don't remember Lucy Connolly, she is the childminder who tweeted in August that people should set fire to migrant hotels with the migrants still inside. If that makes me racist, so be it. I'm afraid to say it does.
I'm afraid to say it absolutely does. I'm afraid to say that is absolutely so much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other bangers from Stephen, because I'm sure like you'll be looking him up now. He'll have piqued your interest. The BBC is becoming another arm of our snivelling nanny state.
Right.
That's a banger. Harvard is now a byword for the woke decline of academia. And my personal favourite, Amnesty International has become a woke joke, as if the whole point of Amnesty International is not to be woke.
Yeah. I love how woke has become this massive insult. It's like, they're aware of the situations around them and the structures that create it. It's
They
like,
know about what goes on in the world. A
disgusting.
human rights charity.
But also, it's so funny because, like, we would say, like, okay, well, if you're going to criticize the IDF, I mean, well, look at their record when Amnesty International investigated them, when the UN investigate them. So, of course, this man would then say, oh, yeah, but that's a woke nonsense.
Yeah.
It does all feel like a slight distraction from the ongoing genocide. And it just serves to kind of show that we will find any reason to have a good old-fashioned fallout over nothing.
Yeah, a good old-fashioned, what's it called? A pearl clutch moment.
Oh, a pearl clutch. We love a
The
pearl
British
clutch.
media love a pearl clutch.
But you know what? I think it's because as a sort of there is a Western hegemony about this, where in times of crisis we love a distraction, and there's nothing more distracting from a potential crisis and things going horribly, horribly wrong than a good wedding.
Oh, it's wedding season,
It's
isn't it?
wedding season, baby. I've got a few coming up, but none will be quite as expensive or quite as controversial, I hope, than Jeff Bezos' wedding.
Well, aren't you going to be
in
singing
Venice.
at this wedding that's coming up?
Not Bezos's, but a different one. Yeah.
That might be as controversial.
I was actually a lot like a few of the things that are on the schedule. It had to be moved because of the protests. I was going to be involved in the Bezos wedding, but I've got a long history with Oprah that's a little bit fraught. My appearance on The View a few years ago still draws some negative ire.
You slagged off a book club back in the day.
Yeah, well, all I said was that, sometimes we're focusing on the idea of just reading for the sake of reading rather than actually indulging ourselves in the author's works. She still hasn't forgiven me. And Oprah, if you're watching this, why did you go to Jeff Bezos' wedding? That was kind of strange of you.
Yeah, hook us up with some Ozempic.
Hook us up with some Ozempic. Darling, I'm skin and bones. So, let's face it. I'm gonna have people messaging in telling me to give me like McDonald's vouchers in the next few weeks.
You'd be Anna Wintour shaped if it keeps going on like this.
Oh, darling, Anna Wintour, I want to throw myself into the succession crisis, which we will get to. We said that, who cares about celebrities? Please care about celebrities. We've got so much more to come on the show. But Jeff Bezos has planned this wedding. It is costing him between, and what's your estimate, by the way? What would Jeff Bezos pay for a wedding?
So, okay, Bezos, let's work this out. He's worth billions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking like 10 billion, 100 billion?
I don't know his net worth. It changes day by day.
Okay. I think he's maybe dropped 20 million on the wedding.
You've undershot it.
What?
He's spending between 34 and 41 million pounds.
How do you even spend that?
I don't.
Also, funny sidebar, that's enough to get Bruno Mars to perform at your wedding 9 times, because that's what he tried to charge Jennifer Lopez back in the day.
You know what? I'd rather a 9-day What they called when they were in Vegas? A residency.
Yeah.
I'd rather a 9-day residency for like, I don't know, I guess it'd be like an Indian style wedding that just kind of
Round it
keeps
up
going.
to 50 billion, throw in Anderson .Paak.
Yeah. I'd be there. But I was kind of worried when I suggested that you give us a loose estimate there. I'm like, he's going to overshoot this.
Yeah,
No.
I hate when that happens.
Hate when that happens. Somehow, some way, you've like, yeah.
A quadrillion pounds?
Would you be looking 30 to 40 million? It's unbelievable. And when you put that into like sort of terms of euros, which we would be spending in Italy, it goes between more like a 40 to 50 kind of range. It's disgusting. But this has led to a variety of protests. No space for Bezos, the spaceman himself, was written on a banner that adorned Venice's Rialto Bridge, one of the most sort of like iconic landmarks in what is already a historic city. And we're going to get onto this level of just how important the city and its landmarks are. See, he made the whole city his wedding venue, going between, I think, the private island of San Giorgio for the actual vows, so that they were kind of like enclosed in, but they were going all over the place, and all the luxury hotels, where you're looking at like £300 a night hotels, being booked out entirely by entourages of celebrities and their sort of support staff, their security, everything. The streets, meanwhile, were filled with paparazzi and protesters. Now, some of the signs in the crowd that weren't saying no space for Bezos included Kisses Yes, Bezos No, which is
very good.
Probably my favourite. And the idea that the wedding was celebrating obscene wealth and inequality rather than love. And I think for the romantic bleeding hearts of the Venetians, that's what really disgusted them. They're like, oh no, it's so gauche. But is it just the fact that it was gauche? Not really. So he had a massive entourage around him, and while he was the central star, they almost outshone him, because his guest list included Oprah Winfrey, and darling, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Orlando Bloom, who, speaking of men involved in famous divorces, and some Kardashians were there as well, scattered about. Just chuck some Kardashians in the mix. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Always.
Always. He's permanently on holiday, that boy. I don't know who he's dating these days, but God bless him. Good luck when you turn 25. Ivanka Trump was there with the Kush. Not saying that she was the life of the party. Jared Kushner was, of course, her date. Bill Gates was there as well.
He'd be such a dry guy to have at a wedding. I guess him and Bezos would chat it up.
Maybe, but I feel like Bill Gates is just sort of like... I think Bill Gates and Oprah would have a more... like kind of like steady conversation.
Maybe.
Than, like,
I feel
Bezos.
like the public persona of these CEOs is so dry, but if you got them all in a room together, they know so much that the rest of society doesn't know.
They know how to party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, do you remember when I stole the Chinese election?
Yeah.
Like,
well, do you know, allegedly, do you know who was the real life of the party then? Usher.
oh, yeah.
Now, you always have an usher at a wedding, but very rarely is that actually
Is that
Usher.
Usher?
But obviously Usher would be there. As soon as I saw his name, I was like, yes, this lines up perfectly. There's no one I'd expect more to be at a £30 million wedding than Usher.
Did he do the cherries?
The what?
You know the thing with the cherries? Where he dangles them on his tour in front of women and they have to like lick them with their tongue. As if they're tomatoes.
And we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, grandeur certainly seemed to supersede romance. And look, one of the protesters kind of came out and said, look, we're not just mad that, it's Bezos and, it's all these different things. This is part of a wider issue. Flavio Kogo, or Kojo, I think it might be Kojo, said that we want a free Venice, which is finally dedicated to its citizens. And this is part of the ongoing thing. The wedding has come at a major point of conflict for a lot of Europe's tourist hotspots. And we've kind of like skirted around this in recent episodes. But many are facing the harsh financial reality of temporary residents receiving preferential treatment to your sort of full-timers. With properties already seen as scarce and unaffordable amid sort of the high-priced hotels, the rise of holiday rentals has made the situation all the more painful for the people looking for permanent residence. This has also resulted in the issue of overcrowding. So there's 50,000 residents of the historic centre of Venice, and they are often vastly outnumbered by tourists. The pre-COVID number in 2019 was 5.5 million.
What?
Yeah.
Tourists?
Tourists.
At one time?
In a year.
Oh, in a year. I was going to say.
A day, Christopher. Pull yourself together.
In 1 second?
My goodness, 5.5 million a second. I've not seen that in a very long time. Since records began, no one has seen 5.5 million tourists in one place. Before then, we cannot say for certain.
There's nothing more humbling than me misunderstanding statistics on a daily,
It
weekly
happens
basis.
every single week. So this only made their absence during the pandemic all the more obvious, because when you don't have 5.5 million people per second, you start to realise that things can really heal. So much was made over the city's lagoon and canals miraculously recovering during the pandemic. I mean, we all remember the pictures of sort of like dolphins in the rivers, and how much of that was true is completely different. But we did also see Venice's waters actually becoming much clearer and much cleaner. And this was part of that environmental side of the protest that gives Venice a real extra point of emphasis, because the city and its lagoon are all a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so it ought to be protected by all the various environmental agencies. But in the ongoing climate emergency and in the constant flow of cruise ships and apparently billionaire weddings, Venice's floods are getting more and more concerning for those having to face their consequences. You've seen the bulk, actually, of their major floods happening in the last 30 years. When you look at, like, again, since records began about 150 years ago, the bulk was coming in the last 30. And interestingly enough, that 2019 statistic of 5.5 million tourists, that same year in the November, there was a flood that saw more than 80% of the city underwater.
Whoa. Is that like an Archimedes situation? Because if you get 5.5 million people per second and they all get in the water at the same time,
jump in.
they'll jump in the bath at the same time.
What happens when 5.5 million tourists cannonball? Well, 80% of Venice gets covered underwater. The estimated cost of recovery was €1 billion.
Wow.
That's just from one flood. And so the floods are like fairly regular, not to like a major extent. They happen every few years. But yeah, 2019, right before the pandemic, we see this worst flood. We see this massive spike in visitors, and then there's nothing for a few years. And all of a sudden people start to realize, well, actually, when you don't have the hotels full, the city's kind of empty. And when you don't have the tourism coming in at a sustainable rate, you then have an economy that's struggling. So this became a flashpoint for Venice. Last year, the city introduced a €5 fee for day trippers, which I'm sure the Beatles will be happy about. And that's only for when they enter the city between 8:30 and 4 o'clock. It doesn't apply to overnight stays or visits outside those hours, so it's very, very loose. The measure meant more regulation on tourists, with sort of QR codes and ticket checks abound. But locals protested this as well, viewing it as massively missing the point. So there's this petition, this list called The Whole City Together, and it brought together trade associations and just your sort of average Joe blogs, or what would it be, Giuseppe Bloggini, who were angry about the situation, rallying around the mantra, no to ticket, yes to houses and services for all. Ultimately, it's not about the cost for tourists, it's about the cost for locals, fiscally, socially, and environmentally. You've got to look at this whole thing as an entire entity. Now, security concerns forced Saturday night's party, which was, I think, celebrating after the vows, behind fortified walls of the Arsenale. And there is something quite interesting there about, at a time of real heat, this big wedding is being held in Venice, and they decide, well, people aren't really liking it. Let's go into the old arsenal of the city, behind fortified walls. That surely shows that what we're doing is socially acceptable. And
reminiscent of Nero, perhaps.
Is a little bit Nero. But Bezos can't shut out the world forever, especially with rising water levels. Now, he gave £800,000, a smidgen of the wedding budget, I think that's spent on the cake, to environmental research agencies around the city. But activists, like the formerly mentioned Flavio Kojo, see this as nothing more than an attempt to clear his conscience. And, that's what celebrities really like to do. Now, look, Venice is all about romance. But what Venice will be left if only the wealthiest feel the love? That's the question on the minds of all the Venetians and all of us watching from a distance as we enjoy very deeply Bezos' special day being ever so slightly tarnished.
There's quite a few problems I have with a destination wedding in Venice. For one, the audacity. Because it's not... Is it about you and your wife, or is it about I've got Venice?
Well, this is the thing. The fact that they did it at multiple private venues across Venice, a lot of them historical, a lot of major landmarks. It's not like a destination wedding where it's a few people book out, say like a villa or a tourist spot, or just like a one thing that's kind of like part of the place, and they don't make too much of a fuss. In fact, it might as well just be like a local wedding where you find a spot. What they did was they basically made the entire place into a massive promenade for them. And something I didn't mention there, and which I think is really the cherry on top of this absolute turd cake that's very soggy, is the fact that on one of the events that they had planned, I think I saw this on NBC, one of the events they had planned, and I don't know if it was one of the ones that went ahead, was a Great Gatsby themed do.
Right.
And I just don't know whether they understand the irony of that, and whether them understanding the irony makes it funnier or not.
CEOs do not understand art.
They really don't.
Very sweeping statement. Lots do, but this caliber of CEO, I'm not convinced.
There's something about saying that it's like, oh, what was a great time for partying and just having fun. Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Great Gatsby.
Last Days of Rome as well.
Last Days of Rome. Guys, what a
Yeah.
beautiful time. And I just think that it really sums up the entire thing, where like you see lots of videos of him waving to the paparazzi and all these different things, and waving to the crowds of people. Most of whom were protesting his presence with a big smile on his face, as if it was the Pope coming to town. And it's just, there's something about being behind that golden wall where you just can't see what's right in front of you. But like I said, you can't hide forever. Now, Chris, tell me what happens when one of these massive institutions faces its own flashpoint within the family.
Gladly. So this week, Dame Anna Wintour, the feared editor-in-chief of Vogue, announced she was leaving her role. But who, Matty, will replace her?
Me. Hi, I'm Matty. It's all about fashion, darling.
Hard launch. Yeah, Matty's leaving the podcast, unfortunately.
It's been a good run. It's
Yeah,
been a good
he's
run.
going to be editor-in-chief of Vogue. So if you don't know about Anna Wintour, you've probably been either living under a rock or you weren't at Jeff Bezos' wedding. She began editing British Vogue in 1985, and she quickly earned the nickname Nuclear Wintour.
That's a great nickname.
She was known as the most feared person in the industry and is to this day. So she was influential when she came in. So she came into Vogue, and when she took over Vogue, it was kind of a more spectacular beginning than this end is being. So at the beginning, the previous editor of Vogue found out from her husband, who found out from watching the TV news. So imagine getting fired like that.
Yeah.
Imagine next week you tune into News Sensation and you hear that I added in a bit at the end where you got fired.
Imagine doing his new sensation and it's just a different person. I'm like, wait a minute, this is recorded in my house. That's insane.
It was just Gavin Newsom.
It's like I like hear a voice upstairs. I'm like, what? Gavin?
Yeah, we're bringing in Hayley Welch for a residency on News Sensation Talk to a podcast.
Oh.
So Anna Wintour, she put her stamp on Vogue. So from the first US Vogue cover she sent off in 1988, she ushered in a new era, because the cover model was showing a tiny bit of stomach. In 1988, that was a big deal.
It's like showing your ankles in 1888.
It really is. Or in some parts of the world today. She put Madonna on the cover in 1989, which was the first time a celebrity had been on there. And it was controversial because in January of that year, she'd released her Like a Prayer music video where she gets down on her knees and takes you there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no shortage of people saying that Anna Wintour is the scariest person in the industry. Even her lunches, Matty, have a reputation. So
I want to hear about these lunches.
Would you rather? Here's a would you rather.
Okay.
The Anna Wintour menu. Would you rather eat a burger with no bun or a caprese salad with a steak but no tomatoes?
Well, that's removing the best part of caprese salad. I'd probably take the burger with no bun though. Save myself the gluten.
You don't want meat and cheese?
Well, I wouldn't have cheese on the burger.
Of course. No, but cheese in the caprese salad.
No.
Mozzarella.
Well,
big,
that's the
big
thing.
hunk.
That's why I was saying that you get rid of the tomato. You get rid of the only part of the caprese salad that I can tolerate.
So yeah, burger with no bun makes it through to the next round of celeb
Next round.
lunches.
So what's the next round? Quarterfinals? What are we saying?
Yeah, I think so. It's a Club World Cup format.
Club World Cup format. You have to qualify by winning the Arab League 4 years ago.
The McDonald's Al Hilal meal. Pamela Anderson, friend of the show, I guess. Call me. Former Baywatch star Pamela Anderson, that is, said, "I hate Vogue editor Anna Wintour because she bullies young designers and models to use and wear fur. I'd like to have a dinner party and invite Jack the Ripper and Anna Wintour."
That's cold. That's really good.
Snog, marry, avoid, them three.
Snog, Jack the Ripper.
Because that went so well in the past. Journalist and stylist Andre Leon Talley, who is no longer with us but often considered Wintour's right-hand man, wrote a book that he called A Love Letter to Anna Wintour, in which he called her the Generalissimo. So, even her love letters have a tinge of ice to them.
Yeah. Just a tinge of Italian fascism there,
Up until then, this was the first ever news sensation story to pass the Bechdel test.
Oh, we're doing so well.
We were doing so well. There'll be more powerful women coming up.
Okay.
But former Sun editor David Yelland called her the high priestess of our time. And what he meant by that is that she's kind of a kingmaker or a famous couple maker. So she put Kim and Kanye on her Vogue cover. She put Donald and Ivana Trump on her Vogue cover, kind of making them, you could argue, a key stone in their road to becoming this kind of perceived power couple. And Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez in 2023, launching their brand as a double act.
What a follow-up to our last story, Chris.
So, yeah.
Wow. It's almost if we organise these things.
Thanks for that, Anna. Thanks so much. She's very much remaining in control at Vogue, though. So she will remain chief content officer for parent company Condé Nast and global editorial director of Vogue.
Right.
So even though we're getting a new editor-in-chief, she's still calling the shots.
Yeah. It's just to see who can take it on potentially down the line.
Yeah. Well, taking it on down the line is she's 75, of course. So there's there's a kind of a creeping urgency about this decision. But it's also
now it's the Wintour of our discontent. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
We don't pay him. Should we? Leave it in the comments.
No.
Should Matty get to unionize? Academic Dr. Kate Strasdin says that whoever succeeds Anna will need to balance the need for celebrity content in Vogue, which trends well, both in the magazine and online, with Vogue's core mission. And will also need to balance growing concerns around sustainability, plagiarism, and labour conditions.
Right.
So are you ready to hear about Anna Wintour's conclave?
I'm so ready.
So we'll start with the people who have the lowest chance, and the real outside contender, is Dame Anna's own daughter, film producer B. Shaffer Carozzini. Yes, that's B as in B movie.
What's her credentials?
Being Anna Wintour's daughter.
Right.
As she's a film producer, I don't really think she'll go for it, but Anna Wintour has recently angered Vanity Fair staff by appointing B's friend to run Vanity Fair, which is also under the Condé Nast umbrella, prompted accusations of nepotism.
Nepotism in the fashion industry? Unbelievable.
Well, speaking of nepotism, we've got two Nepo Chloes coming up.
Wow.
And that's Chloe Sharma, who's the senior editor of Vogue, the daughter of historian Simon Sharma.
What?
Yeah, I know. And Chloe Mal, who is the daughter of which French film director?
Louis Mal?
Very much so. Very much so.
I didn't even turn over the page with that one. That's my degree coming in there, folks.
There you go.
That's unbelievable.
All the knowledge you gain at university. It's not wasted.
That was it. That was all the knowledge I gained at university. You're absolutely correct.
And she's also the daughter of actress Candice Bergen.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the editor of Vogue's website, and Chloe Sharma is a senior editor at Vogue.
Wow.
So whether it would be nepotism to advance them to this next stage is questionable, but I'm sure it helped in getting them to where they are today.
That being said, I mean, right, so being the daughter of Candice Bergen and Louis Malle, I can definitely see being like, there's a certain glamour to that. But I mean, like, what friends did Simon Sharma make that makes like his daughter an Nepo for Vogue? I mean, I don't think Simon Sharma's ever, like, in terms of like the degrees of separation between a Simon Sharma book and Vogue, it's quite like broad.
They're all in the same club, Matty, and you're not invited.
Oh, can I be invited to the Simon Sharma Club?
No, I think you're better off throwing your weight behind one of these three front runners.
Okay.
So, contender number one is Amy Astley, editor of Architectural Digest. So, Architectural Digest, she's been showcasing the homes of Hollywood's A-listers.
Okay, so she knows where they all live.
She's part of a secret intelligence agency. No, she does have the fashion background as well as the architectural background. So she's former editor of Teen Vogue.
Right.
And The Hollywood Reporter says it gives her 3 to 5 odds. So it says it's her job to turn down.
Yeah.
Hollywood Reporter, I don't know how qualified they are to give odds. But
yeah, but I also think like Hollywood Reporter is one of the places you'd go to find out who's going to take over Vogue.
Yeah, these little nerds.
Yeah, it's like you turn on CNN to learn about, like, I don't know, one of the more broader global affairs topics we talk about in this show, and you turn on E! News to find out who's going to take over Vogue.
And you turn on News Sensation to learn about it all.
Absolutely true.
Including our second contender, Eva Chen, who's the director of fashion partnerships for Instagram. Now, in this modern world, there's an obvious advantage that social media is now central to the world, not only of fashion, but these days, Maya Hawke talked recently about how celebrities are being cast in even films based on their social media following, having a certain number of, needing to reach a certain number of followers threshold.
I should say that's only to some extent.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not for every movie.
It's much looser in like film and TV, much looser. But it's who you know.
If you're trying to get a project over the line,
for sure,
might be the deciding factor. And she was also Eva Chen was the former beauty editor for Teen Vogue. So she really does tick all the boxes. As does this third contender, Chioma Nnadi, who's the head of editorial content at British Vogue. So she succeeded Edward Enninful, who you might have heard of. He was the youngest ever fashion director of an international publication, aged 18. Also doing this as a black man in the fashion industry and a Ghanaian immigrant to Britain. So he's the kind of person that you will see on LinkedIn, get depressed about. Then your parents will tell you how well. Imagine he was your cousin.
Oh man, this is a bit like when I was like 16, waiting for my GCSE results, and Emma Raducanu was playing at Wimbledon. It was like, this sucks.
But she's still playing at Wimbledon, and now we've got a podcast.
Yeah,
Who got the last laugh? She did. And Chioma Nnadi, just this year, she's had Bella Ramsey, Dua Lipa, and Billie Eilish on her covers. She's also spent 13 years at American Vogue.
Wow.
This feels she's not that old, Chioma Nnadi. It's like it feels very much like she walked into entry level jobs with 13 years experience.
Yeah. And it says here that who's this calling her Wintour's protege?
This is Strazdin, who before was describing Dr. Strazdin the factors that come into play when deciding who will take up Anna Wintour's mantle.
Right.
And it called her Wintour's protege and said it does feel as if she's been waiting in the wings. So is it going to be Astley? Is it going to be Chen? Or is it going to be Nnadi? I'm sure that we don't have any idea.
Hang on. You left a really pregnant pause then, as if I was going to tell you the answer.
I thought you were going to be the next editor of Vogue.
Well, yes.
Can you stand by the statements you make?
Well, then, darling, it speaks for itself. Silence is also an answer. Man for all seasons, and so am I. Get your copy of this summer's Vogue magazine, edited by yours truly.
Yeah, Matty's determined to nix the Bechdel test thing.
I am determined.
Inserting himself in the narrative.
I think we're not talking about enough blokes in all this.
We're not. I mean, to be fair, the Met Gala very rarely focuses on menswear, and this year with black dandyism and superfine tailoring.
Yeah.
Yes, I did my research. Was one of the. Yeah, I'm a massive suck-up. Please give me a job, because it's journalism too.
Honestly, Chris, I'd love to see you write for Vogue. And as my time as editor starts now, this rising sun, darling, you'll ride it with me.
I'm sure you love what I've done with the Essential Bob Dylan cover.
It's postmodern, you know. It plays on different things. No, I mean, well, I've seen Devil Wears Prada, so I know exactly how to run a fashion agency.
The ephemerality of the postage is really a prose form in and of itself.
But actually, I think you'll find that I'm looking at an editorial job elsewhere.
Oh, yes.
I'm looking further east for my editorial work.
You're leaving us.
I'm leaving you guys. I've got a new adventure. It's to save an industry that's on the edge. That's right. High Tang Literature City is burning. We're returning to China, Chris.
Returning to China?
We're returning to China.
On the edge, you say?
On the edge. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, edge indeed. You see, last week... Was it last week we talked about China?
It was.
It was. My goodness, time flies.
China's dating coaches who won't return my emails.
Who won't return the emails. I keep saying to them, guys, I need to know when it's showtime so I can ask a girl for her WeChat. But the Chinese dating coaches are on the male side of things, and we focus on that and we'll get onto this later, heteronormative view of men trying to find a wife. And we had a few people messaging in sort of saying, alongside what we were saying, about how the situation seems rife for a queer community to really take hold. But unfortunately, it's China, and so there are obstacles to that. This is about China's latest effort to tackle their population crisis, putting young women in the firing line of an author purge. That's right. Authors of what exactly? Erotica.
Ooh.
Mostly a genre called danmei. Are you aware of danmei, Chris?
Not aware of danmei.
You strike me as a danmei fan.
Oh, yes.
You see, danmei is a genre inspired by boys love manga from Japan.
When we say boys, are we talking minors?
Well, I mean,
it remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. We're talking more like the boys generally. The boys generally, particularly femboys.
Your Honour, I was grooming the concept of the boys.
Your Honour, Saturday is for all the boys.
Oh God.
No, boys love, which is just basically a gay erotic manga.
Right.
But to put
With
it in
slightly unspecified ages.
Okay, you're turning this into something it isn't. It's the liberating literature movement, Chris.
Oh my.
And as the new editor of
Allen Ginsberg over here.
Oh right, all right. This is unbelievable. In one episode, I've been accused of so much. Right, listen.
He's
here.
gonna blow.
This story is already difficult to navigate enough, and I've got you over here kind of going, do you like boys? Do you like boys? Do you like boys, Allen Ginsberg? Do you want to lower the age of consent, Allen Ginsberg? Will you shut up?
Well, I mean, you could run it on your own. You have done so in the past.
I couldn't run it on my own. I couldn't do this without you. And actually, that was a pretty clear example of really
Boys
what the
love.
ongoing boys love. I mean, enemies to lovers right here. I mean, there are certainly people who will be replaying that snippet of the podcast and just being like, ooh. It's so intense. The fires of love burn bright at New Sensation. And I'll tell you where else they're burning bright. China, but unfortunately they're being suppressed. You see, most of the danmei is found on an online home. That is the
Matty's hard drive.
My hard drive. So many terabytes. The Taiwan-hosted Haitang Literature City, which is burning. As I said at the start of the thing, it's
Haitang sounds like one of what's he called? Sebastian Bond's citrus-themed businesses.
It really does.
Tune into last week.
Tune into last week to find that one out. But Haitang is also given to like the name of writers from it. Like Haitang is just a sort of like it's a shorthand. To give you a context, if you imagine, I'm trying to remember what the name of it is now. The fan fiction websites that people have.
There's an archive of their own Wattpad.
Archive of their own Wattpad. Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of what we're dealing with here in terms of like what the sort of content you're finding on there. But there is a genuine profit to be turned from it, and this is where it gets controversial.
Ooh.
So since February, at least 30 writers, typically women in their 20s, have posted about being arrested on the Weibo social media platform, and by that I mean they're arrested in real life and then as opposed to online. There's not an online arrest thing where it's like you're under arrest in the comments. Damn,
I can't lie. It's always women in their 20s.
It's
like it's all wet, like reading just gooning books on the tube. It's been like
honestly
books that are called things like "You made a fool of death with your beauty" and biting their lip over the sex scenes.
Well, this is the thing: is that in the age of book talk, reading exclusively smut, and smut from across sexual boundaries, across the sexualities, it is really interesting to see a story like this. Now. Last year, 50 Haitang writers were arrested as well. So this ongoing purge has led to people basically saying, right, I'll support you guys. I'll offer you legal support. A lot of these guys are too young. A lot of these gals, really, are too young to really handle the situation. So the people who've offered legal advice have been inundated with requests. It goes beyond even the arrests that we know about. One person claimed to have had 150 legal support requests in a 48-hour window.
Wow. So that's all people who want to represent him or her.
It's all people. It's all people who want representation.
Ah.
Yes, because they're not just going after the writers; they're also going after the readers as well. Now, the authors are accused of breaking China's pornography law for producing and distributing obscene material, which, to a large extent, seems kind of fair enough. And it's those that turned a profit, which is easily accomplished for any revenue made online when you post something onto a website that you can basically have it published for free. Those who turn a profit are facing up to 10 years in prison.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now,
Imagine all the boys love you can get up to in there.
Let me tell you. But this is the issue, is that I said it's fair enough, but the law has leeway for some and not for others. So there are authors of heterosexual erotica, which you might find in any a bookshop near you at the moment, in the front window. Where
You're making it sound like you have a book out.
Well, I'm happy to announce, alongside my position as the new editor of Vogue, I have a new book called Boys Love and They Love Me, and you can find it in all good retailers today. Now... There have been those who've written heterosexual erotica who have been arrested and put into prison in China, but the authorities are particularly focused on the danmei genre itself, with reports that, like I said, even readers are being targeted, which is a real stretch. Now, the bar for distribution, like I said, is really low. You only need 5,000 views for anything deemed obscene.
We'd be all right.
We'd be fine. Some of our TikToks less so, especially when we annoy the Reform voters. But it has stirred conversations about what the extents of literary expression are, especially for queer narratives. But these conversations are also subject to outside interference. So, #HighTang authors arrested drew more than 30 million views on Weibo.
Whoa.
Which shows how easily content can pass that 5,000 barrier mark in a country of 1.4 billion.
I presume Weibo is also censored as well, no?
Well, here's the thing. That conversation was censored and taken down. What was also censored and taken down were Chinese news stories and writers' accounts of arrests. So the crackdown is part of a drive for this heteronormative, traditional value set by Xi Jinping's government to address the decline in birth rates and the imbalance of population. So if you tuned in last week, you will know that this has far more to do with economic inequality and the decades-long one-child policy that saw a favouring of boys over girls to very tragic results. It's also about an ongoing mental health crisis within the country that is pushing people further into isolation. But in the meantime, regional police are rounding up the unusual suspects. Yes, in Lanzhou, the northwestern city, they've called in the authors from across the country for questioning, with some paying out of pocket just to get there to be questioned. Some even drawing funds from their own distribution of obscene materials. So this has been done in the past for the sake of regional police collecting fines under the suggestion that local people were affected, which effectively functions as a phishing scheme, where the local police bring you into a local district for local questioning to get the fines just for them, rather than it being a national issue.
Right. Also, from a practical point of view, if you're trying to establish a heteronormative society, banning people from... Like, this is a way that if Xi Jinping wanted gay people to bury who they are and subsist in lavender marriages, you got to have a bit of gay porn on the side.
You've got to have gay
as
porn
a release valve. Otherwise,
yes.
you're just going to be having gay sex.
And otherwise, it's just going to create more and more fractured homes.
Exactly.
It's true. Listen to us. We're your new policy experts.
New consultants.
Yeah. So while I'm going off to Vogue and also to co-edit HighTang Literature City, you're joining the Xi Jinping CCP? Is this correct? Am I allowed to announce this now?
I'm joining Yvette Cooper, actually.
Oh, right.
The protest group.
The protest group.
I got to stay here at home.
Very important. Hold on the fort. So cybercrime is particularly targeted by police for this phishing scheme because it allows them to sort of like basically say, well, a local tune like on their computer saw this, so I've got to bring you in here now. It's very dodgy.
It's like when you few of my friends, I will say that this has never happened to me, forget to close their porn from the night before and they get called into the IT office. We had an assembly on it once. It was...
How do you remember this?
Right, so the head of IT gets us all goes in front of the whole year and he goes, there once was a boy in the morn who had an unfortunate obsession with porn, and then everyone explodes.
I remember that, actually. That's true. But I want to speak about revenue for a second, getting away from our IT teachers. So, authors aren't necessarily earning in massive ways. With one author pointing out that they'd accumulated about 4,000 yuan over years of writing, which equates to just about £400. And that's over like almost a decade.
You're doing it for the love of the game, really.
Love the game, and I don't think they'd written in a while. And this is just like old stuff that's just sort of churned out some like clicks.
Yeah.
But there is the potential for high earning. Right? Like, with one of the IPs selling its adaptation rights for north of £4 million. Pretty steep step.
Whoa.
Yeah. So these
Who are these characters?
Well, this is the thing. These adaptations have already launched successful careers for, like, the actors involved. So Dan May is very closely removed from China's biggest stars because it just turns into really good TV drama.
Xi Jinping lamenting, why does my country love these stories?
Why does the country love homoerotic period dramas?
I wonder if he's ever been cast in one of these Wattpad stories.
No, because
if it's like fanfic.
Well, here's the question. Would he be more inclined to get mad about it if he was, or less?
I don't know. I feel like he's fighting a losing battle. Like this week, I saw maybe the worst thing I've ever seen on Instagram, which was a tweet that was Cuomo and Mamdani fanfic.
No, no.
So
I
you're
saw
fighting
that exact tweet.
You made it. You're fighting against the tide, really. If you try and stem this, I feel.
Yes. Well, let's look at the value of its existence, right? Beyond the 4 million generated and all these different IPs and successful TV series, all these different things, it's a community. And
it's a community, Mom.
It's a community. The increased pressure on the community to fit a value system that isn't theirs has really only highlighted the need for it. It's like you said, you get rid of it, and it's like, well, you're just demanding. It's going to increase more demand. So, despite being a boys' love genre, it is a lot of female writers, like we said. And that's because it'll give them a chance through this kind of technically a strange medium to explore their own desires.
Is what Virginia Woolf wanted.
Yeah.
A goon of one's own, if you will.
A goon of one's own. Unbelievable. And ultimately, it's an affront to the government's view of gender and sexuality, and that's important. So there are concerns about there being no regulation on who is reading and writing the work. Absolutely. But that is just another example of policy failure. What you're dealing with here is a landscape that is being regulated incorrectly, and their decision is to regulate it even worse. So where are we now? Some of the writers are being bullish. They're going to continue in spite of it all because they can't leave this community behind. And you know what? They love writing gay erotica, and good on them. Others have been intimidated to the point of shame. And there's some really sad stories, especially about these young women whose families are now not talking to them, and there is a real shaming culture that exists. But will the fines and outrage solve the problems we've discussed over the last couple of weeks? Population crisis, imbalances, isolation, loneliness, singletons, people turning away from the traditional views of marriage. No, obviously not. We keep saying this won't change it. Look, I've got an ancient proverb for you here, folks. You can't overturn 40 years of infanticide by cracking down on sapphic femboy erotica. And I think that was Confucius in about the 2nd century. So it's really prescient that he said that so far in advance.
And then I think Lao Tzu said, it can.
It can. But look, I mean, you know what they say, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Oh. You can't put the baby back in the bathwater because you killed the baby. So look, speaking of outrageous solutions to population problems.
I like the look of this.
The French are pinching penises.
Zut alors.
Zut alors. Well, okay, this is according to Russian-backed African news sites that have subsequently retracted these statements.
So where I get all my stories.
You get all your stories. Marley's Bamada.net.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I see it on your sources count at the end of the episodes. Yeah.
I've got a holiday home in Bamako. Love it.
Oh, so it was you who did this. Okay, anyway, we'll get onto this in a second. Look, this is a story of how an urban legend can become a fake news storm. So Bamada.net, the Malian pro-Russian news site, has exacerbated a rumour that if an African man shakes hands with a Frenchman, it will result in the theft of their genitals. One touch is all it takes for these sex thieves. And
is this like misdirection? This is like...
I
was about to say Chris Benoit. I meant Chris Angel. Do not get that mixed up.
Chris Benoit is slightly different. There is some like Benoit-esque, like sort of horrific traumatic violence as this piece goes on. But yeah, Chris Angel, shaking your hand, you're looking at the hand, you're not noticing, behind your ear, it's your penis. But the rumour has been around since the 1970s. Started in Nigeria, spread further west, and then towards the centre of Africa as well. And the bizarre allegations and attacks have continued ever since. Last year, in Bambari, a town in the Central African Republic, a humanitarian worker had to be evacuated after 3 young men accused him of making their genitals disappear via a handshake. Now, I want to know how they tried to prove that.
Look down.
Look down.
Look down. No. That's what that song was about, actually.
That's what that song was about.
Javert was a French humanitarian aid worker. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was all the prisoners who were saying about Javert, saying that, look down, he's stolen your penis.
He stole my balls.
Now come with me, prisoner 24601. Your time is up and your balls are mine. So do you know what that means? Yes, I have no pause.
I have a very high voice.
Castrati, yeah, exactly. Little twist. But in Bangui, which is the CAR's capital, there was an allegation of a mere brush on the street was enough to trigger a mob attack where someone said, "Oh, he bumped into me. He's stolen my penis." You, sir, get your hand off my penis.
Penis is flying like tumbleweed down there.
Yeah.
Central African streets.
And meanwhile, the police are having to investigate. They're having to come in here and get in the way. You know? And it got so bad that the Minister of Communication and Media had to publicly deny the rumour and call for the attacks to stop. And they were threatening legal action against those spreading false information.
Who is he to deny people's lived experience, though? If a strange man came and shook your hand and stole your penis, you can't deny that on someone else's behalf.
Yeah, but you know what I can do is I can tell you to pull your pants down and show me.
A strategy that does not work well for Matty over the years.
A strategy that has ended badly for me on so many occasions. Not quite as badly as it did in my time in Bambari. I'll never be a humanitarian worker again.
Yeah, no, you can't go back.
Can't go back. Those 3 young boys are still emailing me.
I love that the Minister of Communication and Media is spending his time on this. Like, do you not have a greater Russian propaganda problem?
yeah. Well, speaking of, like the drunken Thénardier, here comes Bamada.net, who claimed that sex theft. This was part of a secret Parisian plot led by Emmanuel Macron, called repopulation, where stolen organs were taken to secret Versailles bunkers to combat European fertility decline.
No words for that.
No words for that. Now, some would argue the way to combat European fertility decline is to go to a Moscow fertility clinic and donate gallons and gallons of prime Durov sperm.
Or of boys' love material for the sperm to be coaxed out to.
Yeah. Gather up all the people who are fans of Dan May into one room and say, have a crack. Here's
Dan
your
May
material.
sounds like he's got a show on BBC Radio 1. Next up, it's Dan May.
Welcome to the Boys Love Dan May Hour. Club Tropicana drinks are free. Yeah, no. I mean, that's my drag name now, Dan May, I feel.
Dan May. It's pretty good.
It's good. It's
Nearly as good as one we saw, Fanny Burns.
Fanny Burns. Better than Katy Perry, my former alter ego.
Yes.
But look, Mali, where Bamada.net is based and where all this stuff is coming from, and the Central African Republic are both in the Kremlin sphere of influence. And this is really important. Bamada don't just post random pro-Russian content. This is part of a broader government issue. There's a 2021 coup in Mali that brought in a pro-Russian leader. And Russian mercenaries have been active in the Central African Republic since about 2018. And this includes the Wagner Group, who you may remember from all
X
the
Factor.
issues... Wagner.
It's Wagner Louis.
It's Wagner. It's Wagner. The Wagner Group, who you may remember from the issue where they almost marched on Moscow during the Ukrainian invasion.
Yes.
Yes. So, look, the ridiculous conspiracy was supposed to push people further into the Russian sphere of influence by targeting the pre-existing anti-colonial, anti-French sentiment, but it was broadly unsuccessful. I don't want to paint the image here that everyone's going around the Central African Republic going, "He stole my penis," because it's just not true.
It would be funny, though.
It would kind of be funny. Bamada retracted the story after just 10 days, and social media polls showed that just 16% of commenters believed it. And the story also failed to take hold in the French far-right circles, where it was posted on fdezouche.com, which is a sort of extreme right French sort of channel. And even people there were like, we do not like Emmanuel Macron, but I do not think he can steal people's penis with a handshake. In fact, I would be quite impressed.
I think Brigitte Macron is a man, but they draw the line at the penis.
Yeah. If he would have stolen Brigitte's. But, but the actions of Russian mercenaries have also not helped. So if you're trying to point yourselves as the people who are really representing the interests of Central African Republic against the penis-stealing French, perhaps don't commit massacres in very recent years during sort of what was effectively a democracy war and rebellion in the Central African Republic that did involve innocent people being slaughtered by the Wagner Group. And again, the woke Amnesty International have widely reported this, so they can't really hide from it.
Tofu eating.
tofu eating, Guardian reading, woke karate, which I'm a black belt in. But an outrageous rumor.
Mum, it's an outrageous rumor.
An outrageous rumor,
I won't have it.
no matter how phallic, will always struggle to topple legitimate outrage. And there's no more legitimate outrage than you gunning down civilians. No, here's a great quote for you. This is from the Books and Ideas article. It's a Frenchman who's been writing about this issue. And if you want to learn more about it, this is really the best place to look. It's called Macron and the Sex Thieves.
We'll link it
It
down
sounds
below.
like a fantastic band from the 1970s.
It's right there with Maniac Murder Cult.
Right over there, yeah. But Julien Bonhomme, Julien Bonhomme? Julien Bonhomme.
Yeah.
No, my French is rusty. It's translated by Tamsin Simmons. Even if a rumour can be used to manufacture fake news, it's much more difficult to transform fake news into a rumour. Mic drop. And if you have any more fake news that you want us to generate into rumours, or you just want to get in touch, you can contact us with all your thoughts, feelings, and potentially some stories you want to hear more about at our email,
which is newsensationpod@gmail.com. Or please follow us on either Insta or TikTok. And our Instagram is
New Sensation,
and our TikTok is
New Sensation Pod.
Didn't even have to look at the script. This guy's good.
I know my stuff, darling. I know my stuff. It's because I had to constantly write it out week by week for the edit. In the meantime, he's been Chris Patel.
He's been Matty Curry.
And thank you for listening, watching, whatever you've done to engage in this. But just please, 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 if you're going to make a Dan May out of us, give us some of the revenue.
I'll make a Dan out of you.